Imagine it's a dead of night in London, 2013. The house is silent. Two young children are asleep upstairs. A woman sits at her computer, her fingers trembling, tears blurring her vision. She isn't looking for help. She isn't Googling domestic violence hotlines or how to leave an abuser. Instead, she types 6 words that would later become the most chilling evidence in a murder trial. Magic spells to make him love me. Then, another search, urgent spell to make him sorry for hurting me. This woman was Jenny Gray. She was a graphic designer, a mother, and a woman so deeply addicted to a violent man that she believed supernatural intervention was more realistic than walking out the front door. But magic couldn't save her. And 3 months after those searches, her 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, would be dead, beaten so badly it was comparable to a high-speed car crash. This isn't just a story about a killer. It's a story about the thin, terrifying line between being a victim and becoming an accomplice. To understand why Jenny was searching for spells, you have to understand the monster she was trying to tame, Ben Butler. Ben wasn't just a bad guy. He was a man of 3 distinct characters. First, there was normal Ben, charming, loving, the man who convinced Jenny he was the only person who truly understood her. Then, there was violent Ben. His ex-partners described his face contorting with a rage that felt pure evil. He didn't just hit, he throttled, he kneecapped, and he didn't care if a woman was pregnant. But the most dangerous was babified Ben. After the violence, he would transform into a weeping, apologetic child. He would beg for forgiveness. He would say, "It's not me, I've changed." Jenny was hooked on the apology. She sent him texts saying, "I'm obsessed and in awe of you. I would die for you." Tragically, she didn't realize it wasn't her life that would be sacrificed. It was her daughter's. The tragedy of Ellie Butler is that she had already been saved once. In 2007, when she was only 7 weeks old, Ellie was rushed to the hospital with bleeding on the brain and in her eyes. The doctors were clear. This was shaken baby syndrome. Ben was sent to prison, and Ellie was placed with her grandparents, Neil and Linda Gray. For 5 years, Ellie flourished. She was a shining light, bubbly, safe, and adored. But Ben Butler was a manipulator. He appealed his conviction and won on a technicality. He and Jenny then hired a celebrity publicist, Max Clifford, to run a media campaign. They sat on the famous This Morning sofa, portraying themselves as the ultimate victims of an unjust system. In 2012, a High Court judge, Mrs. Justice Hogg, made a decision that still haunts the UK legal system. Despite the warnings from social workers, she ordered Ellie to be returned to her parents. She called it a happy ending. Ellie's grandfather stood up in that courtroom and told the judge, "You will have blood on your hands." He was right. The final 11 months of Ellie's life were a slow-motion horror story. Ellie went from a happy, well-groomed child to what teachers described as an orphan. She arrived at school with dirty hair, mismatched shoes, and bruises on her face. She whispered for words to a foster carer that should have been a siren, "My house is a bad house." Inside that house, the violence was escalating. Ben fractured Ellie's shoulder blade. For nearly a month, this 6-year-old girl walked around with a broken bone that was never treated. Why? Because Jenny knew that if she took Ellie to a doctor, the happy ending would be over. Ben would go back to jail. So she watched her daughter suffer in silence. She chose a man over the child. On October 28, 2013, the end finally came. Jenny was at work when Ben called. Her colleagues heard her shout into the phone, "What did you do?" She knew. She rushed home to find Ellie with catastrophic head injuries. But instead of calling an ambulance, Jenny and Ben spent 2 full hours staging a crime scene. They threw out Jenny's secret diary. They washed bloodstained clothes. Ben even walked the dog, smiling at neighbors to appear normal. They put on a Peppa Pig DVD and placed Ellie's body in front of it, creating a story that she had fallen while jumping on the bed. When they finally called 999, Jenny's performance was called cynical acting by the judge. She wailed and performed CPR on a child she knew had been cold for hours. The forensic evidence destroyed them. The force used on Ellie was so great that no fall from a bed could explain it. Ben Butler was sentenced to life. Jenny Gray was sentenced to 42 months for her role in the cover-up and the neglect. But there's a final, heartbreaking detail. Jenny's mother, Linda, the woman who had raised Ellie for 5 years, died of cancer on the very first day of the trial. She never saw justice. Her husband, Neil, refused to tell Jenny she was dead until the verdict was read. Jenny sobbed in the dock, not for Ellie, but for her mother. So, we're left with a question. Was Jenny Gray a victim? Yes, she was abused. But at what point does a victim's fear become complicity? She had dozens of chances to save Ellie. She chose a monster because being alone was more terrifying than watching her daughter die. Ellie Butler was 6 years old. She asked to stay with her grandparents. She asked to speak to the judge. Nobody listened. The judge called this case a triumph of foremost substance, where the parents' public image mattered more than the child's safety. What do you think? Should Jenny Gray have served a longer sentence for her silence? And how do we stop the system from ever forcing a child back into a bad house again? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. Stay sharp. Stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next story.